In this video, it's titled How to Get Over Procrastination. If we think about the phenomena of procrastination, there are probably many ways to characterize it, but one way in which we might characterize it is as a conversation between two people. One person is saying, let's get something done. It may be, let's get our taxes done early, or let's work on this book, or article, or book, or let's work on this task. And then there's another person that's saying, no, I don't really want to do that. And that's the conflict, that's the dilemma of procrastination, is that you have this inner conflict between these two people. Person A, which is the one that's wanting something to get done, and person B, who's not wanting things to get done. And that's a very simple model of procrastination. So before I get into that, I wanted to talk about something else. Suppose that you have a friend, or you know a person, and this person says to you, I value our friendship. You are very important to me. I care for you. But meanwhile, they're always late. Let's say they're late 15 to 30 minutes. They don't return your calls. Maybe they never initiate any interactions. And on the occasion when you're able to get a hold of them, they remind you how important you are to them. The question is, what do you do? Or how do you hold this person? Do you decide to believe what they're telling you, or do you deal with the sort of the unpleasant effects of how they're actually treating you? And there's a saying that's a well-known saying that Maya Angelou has said, and it goes something like, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. So her saying, Maya Angelou's saying, doesn't go, when someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. It's when someone shows you who they are. So if you have a friend or a person in your life like this, their words are saying one thing, but their actions are showing you something entirely different. In her admonition, her suggestion is to believe what's being shown. So you can almost put aside what's being spoken and basically put your chips in what's being shown. And you're likely going to see them for who they are. You're likely going to have a better predictive ability in terms of how they're going to behave in the future. And you're likely not going to experience much disappointment, because when they do act in a certain way, you'll have come to expect that that's who they are, because they've shown you who they are. There's no point putting blinders on ourselves and pretending like we're not seeing what they're showing us and somehow believing. Yeah? And so this can be a difficult lesson to learn, and I think most of us who've learned it have come about it through difficult lessons or difficult circumstances, to where we realize that this saying has a certain weight or a truthfulness or a pragmatic value to it. So going back to the phenomena of procrastination now, I characterized it as an interaction between two people, person A and person B. What kind of goes unnoticed, I think, is that there's a third person that's involved in the act of procrastination. And that's a person that we might call an observer or witness. But the word that I want to use here is an ally, as in someone who forms an alliance. Now, when we're in a state that we're calling procrastination, again, there's a conflict between two people. One person is, do this, do that, we need to do this, we need to accomplish this, I should get this done, I shouldn't wait till the last minute. And then there's the other person who's basically saying, I don't really want to do it. But this third person, the part that we might identify as ourselves, if we're procrastinating, has a tendency to ally itself with person A, with the first person. So we identify with the person who's wanting to get the thing done. So therefore, since this third person, or we ourselves, are allied with person A, person B is the enemy. Person B is the problem. Person B the person who's dragging the feet is the one that needs to be fixed. But I want to point to the importance of this third person, or the person that I'm calling ourselves, who's going to choose to ally himself or herself with one or the other, or both or neither. If this third person were to take the first two as a joint person, as a separate person, like our friend, and think of Maya Angelou's suggestion, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. What does that lead to? It leads to the fact that if we look at ourselves while we're quote-unquote procrastinating, what we see is that we're thinking and believing and even possibly proclaiming to the world, I need to get blank such and such done. For example, it could be like, I don't want to procrastinate on my taxes until April 15th, so I want to get started on them during March. So that's person A. Person B isn't doing anything. If we remember the admonition, Maya Angelou's admonition, what we can recognize is that, hey, I'm showing who I am. I'm showing what matters to me. What's being shown is that doing the taxes early is not important. So who are we going to believe? Are we going to believe person A, or are we going to believe person B? I would say it's better to believe person B. In other words, the third person who's observing the interaction between person A and person B doesn't have to ally himself or herself with person A. We can ally ourselves with person B, just as when we have a friend over here who's saying they care for us, but their actions are showing us that they don't. Which is it better to believe? It's better to believe who they're showing us who they are. So we can ally ourselves with their actions and say, oh, they don't truly care for us, and that's who they are. And that's our allegiance. That's where our loyalties are to that, in how we view that person. And similarly, we can do the same to ourselves. I could be thinking and believing and wishing and desiring and hoping to get my taxes done early, or writing that book, or getting some task done, or going shopping. But if my actions are showing me that I'm not interested, then I'm better off believing that I'm not interested and that the rest is just talk. If we do that, we instantly get past procrastination. We've gotten over procrastination. We're in fact done with procrastination. Why? There is no procrastination because we've discarded person A from our consideration. All we see at that point is we're not interested in doing the task that we think we need to be doing. So we're going to approve of that. We're like, yeah, don't want to do it. And so that's in a nutshell. There's going to be a part 2 to this where I'm going to talk about what's the benefit of basically dissolving procrastination as a construct. In other words, what's the benefit of shucking person A? Well, it's very similar to the example with a friend. If we start believing what they show us and disregarding what they tell us, there's a lot of benefits to that. The first of which is that we're not going to be very confused about the person. And likewise, if we're quote-unquote procrastinating, that's a definition, right? It's a word that I would characterize as there's an inner conflict between this person A and person B, and we're allying ourselves with person A. But when we no longer do that, and we discard person A, we're no longer confused. And by definition, we're no longer procrastinating. We're simply being who we are willing to be. We're simply no longer trying to be someone that we actually aren't. So the conflict is resolved. But there's a lot more to gain from it besides a simple conflict being resolved. But that's the first and foremost and most important outcome, I would say. So again, it's when we show ourselves who we are, it's better to believe what we're showing ourselves to be from the very first time. Then there's no conflict. And by the way, with the tax example, suppose on March 15th I decide I should get an early start on taxes and I find myself not doing it. Then I immediately know I'm not interested in doing it. And suppose that lasts until April 15th. I know, and I think most of us are like me, that I'll do it. I'll get it done, or I'll file some form for to file late taxes, which I've never done. But even if I do it on April 15th, that's okay. Why? Because I won't have spent a month procrastinating. I won't have spent a month in conflict, beating up on myself, feeling bad about myself. I'll have simply said, I'm not interested, and I'm interested in doing it at the very last minute. The interesting thing is, that hasn't happened. That used to happen when I was younger, when I used to believe in procrastination. At this point, procrastination doesn't seem to be a reality. Procrastination can't exist without an allegiance to person A within ourselves, the person who's intending on and trying to get something done when person B within us doesn't want to, isn't going to do it, isn't willing. Anyway, I hope that spurs some food for thought for you, and then there will be a part B at some point.